What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. I'm Garrett Albert, and I'm just teaching everybody a little bit about fishing and learning myself as I go with this whole YouTube thing. So it is finally a very nice day, and I have fished all weekend, and my GoPro was messed up, so none of the footage was recorded or anything. My batteries were dying really quick, so I couldn't film and make a video about me fishing this weekend, so I'm very sorry for that. But maybe I'm ordering some stuff, so when that stuff comes in, I'll be able to make some actual fishing videos. But anyways, I've been fishing really hard lately. The weather's been perfect and everything, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about today what I've been catching the fish on, and that being crankbaits. So today I'm going to talk about crankbaits. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the rods and reels I like to use, and then I'll talk about the actual crankbaits and a little bit of the way I store them and stuff like that. So stick with it and stay tuned and enjoy. So the first thing I'm going to jump into is the rods and reels that I use. I have three main combos that I use for crankbaits, and the first one that I'm going to pick up is it is a lose rod with a lose reel. This is the Laser MG reel on the lose inshore, mock inshore rod. This is just a 7-foot medium fast action, moderate fast action. It's not a fast action rod because you don't really want a fast action rod when you are throwing crankbaits such as a DT6. This is just a 7-foot, little short rod for throwing DT4s, DT6s, and some smaller square bills. This that I have on right now is just a little DT6, and I've actually caught I think I caught 3 or 4 fish on this exact color and this exact setup. But this rod and reel right here is super nice. It's super slick. The handle, it's got like the grip on it, so it's really nice to hold in your hands all day. And these rods are super light, so you don't ever get really tired of throwing it around, and you don't get overweighed by the rod and reel. This is just a Laser MG lose reel, and this is a really nice reel. The handles on this are real big, so that's really nice. And this is a 7.1 to 1 gear ratio reel, and I've paired this up with 10-pound Seagar Invisex fluorocarbon, and I normally use 10-pound to 12-pound fluorocarbon when I'm throwing crankbaits. I don't use anything much different because I just think that the 10-pound, if you're throwing like a DT6, it'll get it to like 7 or 8 feet, and it just gives it a little bit more action. And the water I'm fishing is normally super clear, so the fish don't get spooked or anything by the line or anything. And if I go up to 12, I'm normally fishing around structure or docks or stuff like that, where the fish can pull my lure into it and snap me off really quick. So I'll bump up to 12. Rarely do I ever go to like 14. If I'm going to 14, then I'm normally throwing around very, very strong structure, and the fish are normally a lot bigger and stuff. But anyways, this is the first setup that I use, and this is a great setup to use. And I think total this rod and reel is probably like, I think it's about $150, and it's not too bad of a really nice crankbait setup to use. So the second setup I'm going to talk about is this one right here. It is a Berkley Lightning rod. This is a really, really cheap rod, but it is an excellent rod to use with a Lose Classic Pro reel. These Classic Pros are cheap and pretty much amazing to use if you just want a super nice tournament ready reel to fish with. And this Berkley Lightning rod, I've got this a while ago, and I haven't used it a ton because I normally only throw crankbaits on it, and I've just started throwing crankbaits here lately and absolutely hammering on them. This is also 7-foot medium, moderate to fast action rod. All these rods are slow tips, because the reason you want a slow tip is because when a fish goes to eat that crankbait, and if you have a fast action rod and you set the hook on that fish, you're going to rip those treble hooks right out of the fish's mouth, and you're never going to hook the fish. So that slow action rod, when you set the hook, it bends, has a lot of give in it. These rods have a lot of give, and they bend way back here. You can tell this rod is bending to the first eyelet, and that is pretty crazy for a rod to bend on the first eyelet there. So it has a lot of give, and it lets those treble hooks sink into that fish where you don't rip the treble hooks out of the fish's mouth. But this right here, this is probably, I think this is about this is probably like $100, $110 setup, and it is extremely nice to use. And I throw about the same crankbaits on all of these. The only time I'm going to step up into a different rod than a 7-foot rod is when I'm throwing like a DT, maybe like a 14 or all the way up to a DT 20. A DT 14 to a 20, then you're going to want to use like a 7.3 to a 7.6, and some people even run up to an 8-foot rod, but I just don't like throwing something that big all day. I'm not a huge fan of deep diving crankbaits. Anyways, I would rather, if I'm going to fish offshore, I would rather just throw a jig or a big worm. But most of these are, most of the things that I'm talking about are dealing with the crankbaits from a square bill all the way up to a DT, a Rapala DT 10 to maybe a 14, but 14 is pushing it probably to a DT 10. And that means dives to 10 foot, a DT 10. And the rod and reels are set up for all those. And this is also just running, this is running 10-pound Seaguar and VizX also. The third and final rod and reel that I'm going to talk about, and my absolute favorite rod and reel, this is what got me to fall in love with crankbait fishing, is this right here. This is a Duckett Micro Magic crankbait rod. It is a cranking rod. It is a 7-foot medium moderate action rod, and this thing is amazing. It is a little bit more expensive. This rod and reel combo, it has the laser MG, Lew's laser MG also. This rod and reel combo is a little bit over $200. I think the rod is like $150 and the reel is about $90, so it's a little bit over $200. And it has the tiny eyelets on it, the micro eyelets on it, and that just makes fishing with this so much better because you can make super accurate casts. The sensitivity of this rod is just incredible. There is not a rod that is more sensitive in my boat than this one right here. And I have all tied on right here. I just have a little, this is just a little DT4 in the crawfish color, and I've been throwing that around, catching some nice fish on it. The fish are feeding on crawfish lately, so I've been throwing a lot of crawfish pattern crankbaits, and when the wind picks up like it is today, it's blowing around 10-15 miles an hour. The crankbait bite is just phenomenal, and you cannot beat it. And normally I'm fishing in, sometimes I'm fishing in dirty water, but normally I'm fishing in clean, clear water off of rocks and stuff like that. And I've been fishing shallow lately. The weather's been up to 60 degrees or so, almost 70 degrees these last few days. And the fish are starting to push up, getting ready to pre-spawn and spawn. Fish are pushing up into water. I mean, sometimes it'll be 1 and 2 foot of water. I caught one fish this weekend. It's about a 3.5 pounder, and it was caught in about 1.5 to 2 foot of water, super shallow. And I was throwing a DT4, and I caught it, and it was just super shallow water on this exact rod and reel, and it handled that fish perfectly. And this rod, I just cannot say enough good things about this rod. I love Duckett rod and reels. They are some of my favorites because they're not $300 for a really nice rod and reel. You can get this rod for $150, and this is probably one of the nicest rods that I've ever used in my entire life. But that is the crankbait setups that I use. This has also got 10-pound Seaguar and VizX. I'm running 10-pound on all these currently, and I think I have maybe, actually I may have misspoke. I have 12-pound on the last one that I showed y'all. I have 12-pound on this because I'm actually going to throw a little bit bigger size crankbait, but I don't want it to go as deep. So these baits right here and this rod and reels are incredible. If you want a perfect crankbait rod, get one of these Duckett Micro Magic rods. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is crankbaits. So these are my 3 crankbait boxes right here. These store all my crankbaits. And this one right here, as you can see, it is labeled DT4, square bills, and lipless crankbaits. And this box right here is, I carry all different kinds. I carry DT4s, I carry lipless crankbaits in the bottom there, and I carry just all my square bills. I love throwing square bills during the pre-spawn about this time of the year, and they really just get the job done. I have certain things, like I have them separated by bluegill up here, then like the bright colors like my neons and stuff like that, chartreuses. I have my sexy shads all across the second row right here. I love throwing a sexy shad. These right here, I have a lot of square bills and stuff that I have those. And then I have like reds, and then I have just some different off-color type ones, and then all my lipless down here at the bottom. This stuff like this right there, that is like a bluegill little DT4, that is just an incredible bait to throw because in this lake, in my home lake, which the lake is right over there, you can, the fish feed on bluegill a lot. So you can throw stuff like a DT4 in a Rapala DT4 in a bluegill color and stuff like that and really get bit. This right here is a tiny little, this is a Guggen Squad, little square bill right here, and it is super small when they're feeding on like really small bluegill and stuff. And I love the pattern of this crankbait right here, and it gets bit excellent. And these hooks are just crazy sticky, and they catch the fish. And if the fish just comes by and just hits it, normally you're gonna hook the fish with ease. And then something like if they're feeding on a little bit bigger bluegill, I have something like this. This is just a big square bill right here with a bluegill pattern on it. So this is my first box and how I have it organized and everything. If you look at it, I'll try to get some good pictures of it there, right there. So you can see how I have everything organized, and I love to label all my boxes. Every single box that I have is labeled. I just have a little label maker to make labels like that, and I also have one right there. So the next box I have right here is my DT6 to DT10 box, this right here. And I have some Strike King lures in here, but they go 6 to 10 foot deep. And I have these right here. Some of these are still in the package because I have not needed a use for them, and normally they're duplicates of the baits that are right here. So these right here are my Rapala DT6s. DT6 is probably my favorite because they have a great body size and everything. With the size of this bait, it's perfect size for a bait fish, and it goes plenty deep for about anywhere I'm fishing. And then I have my shad colors. I keep three different patterns of all. I have shad colors, and then I have like a chartreuse neons, and then I have just reds, which this right here is like a demon. And the only time I differ from that is when I'm throwing like a square bill or something, or a DT4, I will throw a bluegill pattern in there as well. So I'll have 4 patterns in the square bill boxes like I showed earlier, and then I normally have 3 patterns in everything else of all my crankbaits: shad, chartreuse, and then crawfish. And these right here, these are just all different color shads. This is a demon, and then this one right here is just a little blue shad, and it's got a little blue back on the top. So this is how I organize all my other ones. I don't have a ton of them, but I try to keep a couple of each one in case you break off. They say, most people say you need to keep 3 of each color, and on a lot of them I do have 3 of each color, but they're kind of expensive, so normally I'll just keep a couple. And then I have some in the shop back there that you see right over there. I have some hung up on a wall in there in case I ever need some extras. But that is how I keep my DT6s through my DT10s right there in that box. So the next box is my DT14 pluses. These are lures that go anywhere from 14 foot or deeper. Some of these will go up even to, you can get them down to 20-25 foot if you're fishing super offshore. And most of these are Rapalas. The reason that I don't just label them just by depth is because most of these are Rapalas. Some like on the bottom row of this one, it's straight Strike King, because sometimes the Strike King lures work better with the rattles and the way they're designed. But these right here, all the ones up there at the top, these 2 rows are your DT14s, and I think, yeah, these are just DT14s, and I have the same colors. I have crawl, shad, and chartreuse over there. And then these right here are just some different style, but they're still super deep crankbaits. They're a little bit more slender if the shad are a little bit bigger or something in certain lakes and you're fishing offshore. And then down here at the bottom, I have my Strike King, and you can see these, they get tangled up. Of course, that's crankbaits. They're always tangled up, I feel like. But like these will literally go 20 to 25 foot if you want them to. These are super deep crankbaits. And the difference between some of these crankbaits, the reason I do keep, is because you have that noise right there, and then you have a real high-pitched noise with that. The noise between that deep knocking noise, this one has tons of BBs in it and tons of little rattles, and it's a real deep knocking noise, versus a high pitch with the Rapalas. And sometimes the fish like that. deep knocking noise a lot more rather than throwing a high pitch rattle or something. And sometimes I have some of these that don't even have rattles, because sometimes they're just fishing off of sight and no rattles or anything, and sometimes you can't get them to bite a bait with a rattle or something. So this is how I have my deep crankbaits set up. I know these are probably the least thrown out of all of them. I do not throw deep diving crankbaits a ton, but I know they catch really big fish, and I've seen them catch monsters out on any lake, and you always need to keep some deep diving crankbaits in your boat. But these are the crankbaits that I have and the way I have them stored. And this box right here, this is the DT4 square bills and nickels, is probably my most used box, right behind the DT6s to the DT10s. I use the DT6 probably the most out of anything, besides maybe a square bill. So that is pretty much all the things that I have to say about crankbait fishing. You need some crankbaits in your boat at all times. They're excellent to use, and the only thing I'm leaving out of this is some flat-sided crankbaits for wintertime fishing, just because I don't really keep many flat-sided crankbaits, because I can get away with the Rapala DT6 and stuff like that, because they do have a tight wobble. But sometimes you want that balsa wood type crankbait that has a super tight wobble and no rattles or anything in it for the winter time, because that's just what the fish will eat. You cannot hardly beat a flat-sided crankbait. But by next year, I'm hoping to have a whole nother box of just flat-sided. I've just got to get some money and go buy some and figure out which kind I like. I know that Spro makes some really good ones, and Rapala just came out with the OG Slim, and it's supposed to be really, really good. So that is all I have to say about crankbaits. I hope you enjoyed and learned a little something, and feel free to leave any comments, and please like and subscribe. It really helps me out with this whole thing and keeps me putting out videos and stuff, and hopefully when my package comes in for the GoPro accessories, that I'll be able to get out on the water and actually be able to film and save the videos and keep my GoPro not from dying and stuff like that, and actually be able to upload a fishing video, because that's pretty much what all this is about, is fishing. I'm fixing to get ready to go out and fish here in a couple of hours and see if I can throw a crankbait around and get some bites. So, as usual, always chase your dreams.